Chapter 12. Everyone clapped as the auction started. This was as much of a social convention as it was a time of business. This meant that drinks and food were plentiful among the stands. As the Tavera family was paying for everything in the suite, I didn't keep myself from grabbing anything that looked good. And as I found out, many of the candies were divine while the alcohol was rich. I was one of the few who took a seat by the window. The rest were socializing, including Rayla, who apparently had some friends within the Tavera family. So I was by myself for a while as the introductory items were being shown off. I could hear everything clearly through the glass, the noise being amplified by magic. A colossal goat horn, enough to make a full set of armor or construct the chassis of a carriage. Starting price, 25 gold bullion. I saw a truly massive horn appear on stage. It was at least 10 feet tall and 40 feet long. It really could be used to build the chassis of a vehicle. I wondered what kind of monstrosity the colossal goat was to have such huge horns. A container of 85 bone-burrowing beetles, for any of your alchemical needs. Starting price, 45 gold bullion. That box was worth the entirety of my savings at just the starting price. An air mask, constructed from the treated leather of a fire lamp and infused with a grade 4 white crystal. This device can not only filter all the air you breathe, but even boost your stamina. Starting price, 30 gold bullion. That was an interesting one that I might have considering trying to get if I could afford it. But unfortunately, it sold at about 75 gold bullion. The newest prototype of Son's line of transmission devices, the Aerial 8. The details of this device have been purposefully omitted by request of the seller. Starting price, 70 gold bullion. The prices only continued to go up as each item went by. The average price quickly climbed past 100 gold bullion, and every single one was bought casually. Millions of coin being thrown around just like that. And these were just the introductory items. Eventually, the time for introductions were over. More expensive items starting at a minimum of 500 gold bullion started rolling out. From entire sets of armor to crazy intricate weapons, these were high-quality items that could be wielded by those with up to 7 authorities. But nobody seemed to care much. Nobody within my suite paid much mind to those things. And I suppose everyone at this auction was waiting for just one thing. I continued to sit around, eating all the shockingly delicious food that was being handed out. That was, until the door swung open again. Maxwell. H.M. The sharp summoner came strolling back unannounced. He walked straight up to me. In his hands were 2 items. Air mask and aerial. These were 2 of the introductory items. I slowly grabbed them as he explained. The trenches are filled with toxic fumes and drugged air. You'll want the mask to keep you healthy. And use the aerial to contact people. Also, they said something about Son personally wanting to do some stuff with you in the aerial. If you had let me finish, I would have told you what. Suddenly, another man came striding into the room. He was scrawny, like a scientist, and on his face was a pair of glasses that flashed with displays. They looked like futuristic holographic glasses. He walked over to me, grabbing the aerial, which I had surmised was a magic phone. He spoke with haste, as if his mind were filled with a million thoughts. Son, pleased to meet you. This is a prototype model, okay? Prototype. That means it's not perfect and still needs to be adjusted to suit you until I can create a standardized model. Now I can't spill all the details, but this thing can basically connect to your mind, to some extent at least. This new feature is limited for now until I work out the kinks, but nonetheless, still extremely useful. Also, this thing can work independently, regardless of if there are repeater nodes around you. I believe the maximum pulse transmission is 40 miles in all directions, and standard transmission is 10 miles in all directions. Trust me, far more capable than whatever else those dogs at Hero Aerial Works are cooking up. The man, Son, went on a spiel about all the different things that this device could do. In short, it was a phone. This world had phones apparently, although the ones cheap enough for the common man were limited in function. Still, they provided revolutionary communication abilities. And this man, Son, was the owner of Sun Industries. He created these phones, and this was his prototype model. Apparently, he decided to sell one in order to test it out in the field. And Maxwell bought it. As I started to zone out from all his droning on, the man suddenly grabbed my wrist. "Alright, this thing goes on your wrist right under your crest, which it binds to, like all the other models." Snap. Touching the device to my wrist, it automatically unfurled and snapped around the joint, becoming a metal wristband that sat flush against my skin. It wasn't uncomfortable, surprisingly. Now, you can only send information from your mind to the device. The device can't send things to your mind, at least not yet. It is built for it though. So, in order to read things you still have to manually activate the device and read them with your two eyeballs, yes? But, you can now write messages and send them with your mind. You just have to speak them in that empty head of yours and they'll appear on the screen. Now, I'll also be monitoring this device and its functionality to collect operating data so I can perfect it. This is what you have signed up for by buying it. But I didn't. Of course, I won't see nor will I care about the messages you send or receive. I know you elites care about secrecy and all that schnazzle. So just use it as normal and pretend that I'm not connected to the thing. I only need data. Data, okay? Why yes. Good. He nodded before standing and walking away. Oh. One more thing. He stopped and turned back around. You're a summoner? Yes, you are. So, you use Psycha, which is the more elusive of the three. If things go well, I might be able to activate the function so you can also receive data in your mind, since summoners are like that. Only if it goes well. Now, I will be in contact. And please, use the aerial as much as you can. I need data. With that, Sun finally walked out, leaving me in a small daze. Everyone was staring at me, prompting me to hide my wrist and mask behind my body. Mine. Ha ha ha. I can't believe that was Sun. He's filthy rich too. Patriarch Tavera laughed before going back to his business. Maxwell then walked up to me, showing his wrist which also had one of these devices on it. Touch. Tap. He touched the device to mine, and a screen appeared above my wrist. Add Maxwell Albarrane as a contact? Yes. I confirmed in my mind, and sure enough, he was added to my contact list. I could send and receive messages from him. We could even exchange pictures and videos. Real-time calls were also possible. It was a full-fledged telephone. Wow. Pay me back by hurrying up and getting your next authority. With those words, he left once again. Perhaps all those payments every week was worth it. As I admired the aerial and mask, Rayla came up to me with a smile. Extending her wrist, she tapped my aerial, exchanging contact info. I naturally have one too. So does everyone else in the company. Get their contact info when you can. Sure. Thanks. We smiled at each other. After that, there were no more surprises as the auction continued on. There were dozens of items that got introduced and sold off after the course of several hours. Many of them sold for beyond 1,000 gold bullion. The total monetary exchange in just 5 hours was at least 80 million coin. It was a baffling number, but none of it could compare to what was to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the final item of the auction. This is what you all have been waiting for. It was after several hundred more people had flooded into the auction house. The auctioneer had a broad smile on his face as a small cart was rolled out. On top of it was a single box, one that I recognized. The notorious Apocrine has spread the news far and wide. He has concocted a revolutionary item he calls the Overkill Pills. These pills are capable of increasing a person's combat power by several times, even on the verge of death. The duration of this increase depends on the user and how long their body can survive the rampaging power. However, despite the amazing effects, taking one of these pills almost certainly ensures your demise. They should only be taken in the direst of circumstances. Apocrine has dictated one condition for the selling of this product. Not only is he selling a small batch of pills here today, but he is selling an exclusivity contract. The contract will last 2 years, and for that duration, only the buyer can receive these pills to do whatever they wish with them. Holy shit. The auction house was uproarious at the news. Even Patriarch Tavera couldn't help but curse. An exclusivity contract was huge. Because not only would the buyer become the sole owner of any and all pills that were produced, but they could sell them as they wished. It was a monopoly of the product. This was much bigger than simply selling a batch of pills in an auction house. Ha! Truly a madman. I can't imagine how much money he is going to make tonight. Plex was laughing with a drink in his hand. As for me, I was just enjoying the show. I was happy enough with my new magic phone. There are more details that Ryan will personally discuss with the buyer, but that will come later. Ladies and gentlemen, I officially opened the bidding starting at 20,000 gold bullion. 20 million coin. I was baffled at the starting price. Even more so at the subsequent shouts. There were only 3 big names that sounded out. 50,000. 80,000. 120,000. 200,000. The price quickly rose beyond anything I could comprehend. And from beside me, Plex pointed at 3 other suites that stood suspended above the stands. I'm telling you right now, the only 3 bidders for this stuff are the Polaris family, the church, and the fucking dragon military. A black market behemoth, a religious order, and the damn kingdom itself are fighting for this stuff with money we could never touch in our lives. With a single fucking pill, Ryan got the big names to move. Ha ha. Plex started laughing, half because of the absurdity, half because of how drunk he was. I leaned over toward Rayla. I know the kingdom and Polaris family are big, but the church? Yes, the church is a behemoth on equal grounds. That's because they invented the crystal purification system. And that is? The most important technique ever created in the history of mankind. Rayla looked down at the bidding ground with a neutral face. The scourge is a threat that grows by the year. Monstrosities raid our borders every day, armies of mutant humanoids that seek to kill us all. And they all carry crystals, the incarnation of their power. However, their power is tainted, poisonous. Consume that power, and you would turn into a monstrosity yourself. But the church created a way to purify the crystal, turning it into a magic engine that pulls in and stores a universal power called Magicka. This Magicka can turn into any of the 3 energies that knights, warlocks, and summoners can use to advance their authorities. The crystals can also be used to create enchanted items, like your new mask. She pointed at the air mask on my lap. Since the crystal is an engine that constantly pulls in energy, simply tapping into that flow can power objects. It revolutionized the world as we know it. And the church has sole control over that method. Well, they have sole control over the best method. Others have been created, but they don't have the results that the church does. So naturally, the church is a behemoth that sits at the top of the world. Wow. And now they're all fighting for this. 1 million. Another call sounded out. By this point, the entire auction house was silent. Only, after the price reached a whopping 1 billion coin, nothing else was heard. The auctioneer, who hadn't spoken in several minutes, suddenly raised his hand. 1 million gold bullion, going once. Going twice. Sold. The hammer slammed down, yet unlike all the other times, no name was announced. In fact, it all seemed suspicious. They'll probably negotiate in private. There's no way you can simply buy something this important. Plus, they are not going to dump more than that into a single man, let alone a madman like Ryan. Plex scoffed while taking another swig of what I could only assume was pure ethanol by the smell. And with that, the auction officially ended. We stood with Patriarch Tavera, everybody funneling out of the room. It was surprising that I actually came out of this with 2 new toys, but regardless of that, I had witnessed something rather amazing here. And to think that I had been a part of the delivery team that transported this billion coin item. Even if everything that happened was just for show. Chapter 13 ***************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Son of a bitch. Asterisk bang. Asterisk. My flintlock fired into a man's abdomen, one who just hit me with a metal pole. He slumped over after I kicked him away, proceeding to walk my way out. Over my face was the air mask. As Maxwell had said, it was crucial for staying healthy while in the trenches. Sure, you could go in for a day and come out fine, but over several days? The mask was a lifesaver, especially since the smell of drugs and odor was unbearable. Even more, the air that I breathed was so fresh and revitalizing that it gave me more stamina. I could run and fight for much longer, which was similarly a lifesaver. Asterisk ring. Asterisk. Suddenly, I felt my aerial phone go off on my wrist. I looked at it and saw Rayla's name. I answered, her voice echoing in my mind. Hey sweet cheeks. How's the job? Fucking fantastic. Just got whacked in the leg with a pole. What's the other guy look like? A bloody mess on the floor. Then it seems you're still fine. I smiled as we conversed in my mind. It had only taken 2 weeks for Sun to activate the mind function of the Ariel 8 prototype. This meant I could carry out calls, see messages, and send pictures all from the comfort of my brain. But apparently, this was only because I was a summoner. Psyche, the power of the mind that summoners wielded, made all this far easier than with knights or warlocks. We kept talking as I summoned a hatchet and chopped at a man who jumped out at me with a knife. Asterisk splat. Asterisk. So is that suit working well? Now that you're testing it and all. It's definitely made a difference. I spoke while turning, flicking my arm and sending the hatchet flying. The blade buried itself into another man several meters away. Walking past the fresh corpse, the hatchet disappeared, going back to the dimension. Rayla chuckled. I would hope so. You spent 30,000 coin on it. Yay? I mean, I'm not taking nearly as many wounds as I used to, but for those rare occasions, it's definitely doing its part in keeping me alive. Just a few hours ago it managed to stop a sword from cutting through. It even mitigates some of the impact. And it looks sharp on you. Of course. That's the most important part. I smiled as the end of the trenches territory showed itself. Making my way into the territory of the Clockwork Association, I found a certain building number and knocked. What? Special delivery. I yelled back to the rude voice. Soon after, the door swung open, revealing a short old lady. Here. 2,200 coin. Now get off my doormat. After tossing a sack of coin and snatching the package, the door was slammed shut. Compared to my recent clients, she was a saint. I turned and waved. Pleasure doing business. Off my doormat. Another yell came from the building, making me laugh. I then sighed. Finally done with the day. Don't you have class? That'll probably be tomorrow. I'm still on the verge of getting my second authority. It'll probably happen tonight. Oh, well hurry and train then. You know, that's another thing that's always surprised me about you. What's that? I questioned while calling a carriage, having it take me to the Black Spider Hotel. Rayla spoke with skepticism. You're strong for your level. I mean, you're only Authority 1, and you can kill those well above your own power. Well, I still have trouble with knights. Yes, those tough ones seem to be your weakness. But again, you're only on your first authority. Probably just the nature of my summons. I shrugged. I didn't know how I was supposed to explain the technology behind guns in relation to the magical powers of this world. Soon, I arrived at the hotel. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm home. Sure thing, sweet cheeks. I ended the call with a smile. At the same time, I nodded to the keymaster. He smiled back. Good morning, John. Likewise, keymaster. Thank you for the hospitality. You say that every time you come through here. Instead, I should be congratulating you in advance on a successful advancement. Yeah, nothing gets past you. I do my best. He tipped his hat as I walked past. Enjoy your rest, John. Thank you, keymaster. With that, I headed up to my room. Upon entry, I went and stripped my clothes in the bathroom. It was there that I turned on the bath and dumped them in the water. Just like that, my nice clothes had all the dirt and blood stripped right off them. Even the water slid off as I picked them back up. Perfectly clean in just a few minutes. That's what 30 gold bullion gets you. The suit I had spent a significant amount of my savings on was, like my first suit, black with gold embroidery. As there was no worry about getting it dirty, defensively it could eat spells and block swords, and it could moderate its internal temperature, I decided that it would be my normal wear. Even my underwear had fancy enhancements on it. I called the temperature enhancement on it the Ball Chiller. Being a summoner, I didn't need to carry weapons on me like knights did. Anything else I needed to carry was small and could fit in pockets, which my trench coat had plenty of. So I always looked good, though not overly outstanding. My suit wasn't something that would catch the attention of anyone I couldn't handle in a fight. After cleaning my body up for the night, I climbed into bed. It was 6 weeks past my encounter with Ryan and the night at the auction house. Since then, I had been training my authority and doing jobs. The trench jobs really did pay more. The average job paid at least 3 times more than otherwise. The cost for this extra pay, though, were at least 8 trips to the hospital. I've gotten treated for stab wounds, poison, broken bones, and a slew of other small issues. I was lucky that this magical world had fantastic medical care, as with enough money, I could recover from everything without a hitch. I even bought some recovery pills from the hospital that I could take during battles. Those kept me going, temporarily keeping my injuries from getting worse and buying me time. I had really ridden the line of death over these past weeks. But hopefully things would be a bit easier soon. As I laid in my bed, I glanced at a large bruise on my thigh before grabbing a small book and crystal. They were the 2 items Maxwell gave me, and I had been training with them ever since. The process to train my authority involved accumulating more power using the crystal as an engine. You couldn't simply train your own power. That was like a battery trying to power itself. Instead, you needed an external energy source. That's what the crystal was. And the book contained spell formations that allowed me to direct the power in a certain way that wouldn't hurt me. Deviating from those formations hurt like hell, so I quickly learned how to use them properly. Now, I was on the verge of getting my second authority. I could feel it. In my mind, I saw the second star fill with energy over time. It was a tedious process, but now, it was almost completely full. Just one more push. I mumbled to myself as I grabbed the crystal and started training. Energy moved into my body, bypassing my physical self and seeping straight into my mind. I could see the second star of 13 glisten. Then, an hour passed. It was at this time that I felt a reaction. All that power had reached a boiling point. I could suddenly feel a connection to the star. It was like a wall was breaking down. I was gaining access to something. Power beyond me was finally within reach. And I grabbed it. Asterisk flash. Asterisk. The star shone before all the power swirled into a vortex. It shattered the wall, and before I could react, my mind was flooded with information. The second dimension was opened, and through it, I could see more spirits. But all the energy within me was simultaneously drained, leaving me exhausted. I staved off my desire to pass out though and looked into the dimension. What I saw. I didn't know if I was happy or not. Percussion cap weapon, both pistols and rifles. The percussion cap system was far more reliable than the flintlock system. In fact, in the past several weeks there were a few days when it rained. Those days, I outright didn't leave for work since my flintlock pistol couldn't operate when wet. Even if it could, it would be horribly unreliable, and mistakes could mean death for me. So percussion cap weapons were definitely more reliable and easier to reload. But I had been hoping for something like a multi-chamber revolver. Well, things aren't going to be that much easier. I'll probably have to climb to Authority 3 before getting 6 shooters. Luckily this book knows how. This book that Maxwell gave me had the formations for Authority 3, and since he said that advancing a few authorities wasn't an issue with the Magisterium, I decided that I would do so. It took me 6 weeks, but 3 of those weeks were spent getting used to the spell formation. If I can figure things out faster, I might be able to advance again in a month. Well, I'll ask Maxwell tomorrow since I can return to class now. I mumbled while closing the book and putting away the crystal. With that, I went to sleep. Only 6 weeks, huh? Pretty fast, for someone who only activated their crest a couple months ago. Yes, but unfortunately the new summons aren't that much stronger. They are basically more reliable weapons, maybe a bit better in terms of power, but that's it. I see. Well, not out of the ordinary. You won't start seeing significant changes until the latter authorities. Still, there are many things to teach you until then. So sit and listen. Oh, and your bill has increased to 5 gold bullion a week. What? Even numbers, you know? He shrugged, and I could only fork out 5 shiny gold coins. They fell from my card into his hand, which he immediately tossed into his own card, which was of the platinum level. After that, I got to listen to a long lecture that only stopped after the sun had risen. When it was over, I dragged myself out, though not before giving Maxwell a reminder. By the way, the auction is coming up again soon. Of course. Just focus on training your next authority. Oh, and did you get a suit from that man I told you to visit? Yes, I'm wearing it right now. It was Maxwell who referred me to a tailor who made these special suits, telling me to buy one if I wanted to survive. In the end, I spent 30 gold bullion on the one Rayla and I had spoken about the day before. Very well. Oh, take this crystal, and hand me back the other one next time. Use the new one for training. It's more powerful. He tossed me a white crystal, one that was identical to the previous, only bigger. With that, I finally left for the day. My next few weeks were filled with training and working. The reason Maxwell wanted me to face adversity in the trenches was because utilizing my spirits naturally trained me as a summoner, especially since I had cold summons. And I had learned a lot through daily battles. The process of charming to form a communion became far smoother than at first. I also learned a special aspect of the call of the fallen angel that had saved my neck several times. Spirits weren't limited to their summoned forms. Basically, I could pump my psyche into these spirits, making them stronger. This allowed my guns to hit harder at the expense of my energy. When faced with knights who had atrociously strong and resilient bodies, normal bullets didn't cut it. Instead, I spent chunks of my energy, empowering the spirit and giving it stronger shots that could kill those knights. And it was this ability that continued to secure my life in the following weeks. Soon, my third auction came around. It marked the 6th month of the year, which meant it was the second quarterly auction. The major auction that was graced by Vatsy's gala. The Black Spider market was festive even before the auction began. The anticipation was high, and I myself was raking in the big bucks. I was paired with Rayla again as we ran jobs for the auction. Thankfully, nothing like the encounter with Apocryon happened again, though that didn't mean it wasn't dangerous. We were attacked several times, even outside the black markets. It was like these thieves could smell how valuable our cargo was because they always seemed to come out of nowhere. Thankfully Rayla was powerful. Her warlock spells could take people out faster than my pistols could. We still got a few injuries though, ending up in the hospital a couple times. But it was all worth it. Precisely, it was worth the 28,000 gold profit. These quarterly auctions were big. And we were privileged enough to attend them. When the day came, I picked out my formal suit and met the company at the auction house. Inside, there were dancers on a stage and an entire orchestra that was playing swing music. The entire place was filled with the aroma of alcohol, perfume, and delicious food. It was a massive party, all hosted by the bigwig Vatsy. Throw on your masks, and have fun. Of course, another symbol of the gala was the masquerade. Everyone received a mask, one that matched our attire. After putting them on, a few of the guys dispersed, Plex included. Rayla and I, on the other hand, linked arms and wandered around the place. Occasionally we took some snacks, and most of the time we were talking about whatever came to mind. Spending some time at the bar, She would pick out some suitable females that she tried to get me to talk to. All of them were rather gorgeous. Not even the masks could conceal their beauty. But as always, I refused. And in the end, she invited me for a dance. Unfortunately, while I knew how to dance, I didn't know anything from this world. So she was the one who had to lead. I quickly picked up on what seemed to be a combination of square dancing and the tango. It was complex but rhythmic, and after feeling each other for a while, we matched our tempo. Of course, I couldn't help but be tripped up a few times. But everything between us was fun, so we just laughed and kept going. Then, I took the lead and taught her some stuff that I knew. Some simplified tango was fun as I led her around the floor. She was agile as she followed my feet, our bodies almost pasted together while we moved. I knew it wasn't just me as the heat grew. Eventually our smiles turned somber, our gazes locked onto each other's, our eyes sharp almost like we were mad at each other. And then, the music slowed. We came to a stop, her chest pressed against mine and our hot breaths brushing against the other's face. And just when it seemed like something would happen. Asterisk ring. Asterisk. I heard the Ariel ring in my mind. It was a call from Libidus. It drew my attention, and as soon as my eyes were diverted, Rayla took a breath and backed off. Sorry, Libidus is calling me. No, it's fine. I need a drink anyway. She smiled as we walked off the dance floor. I made my way to a bar while Rayla excused herself. I met with Libidus, who grabbed me and pulled me to the side. Hey, there's something you should know. What? I asked weirdly while grabbing some random wine off a tray. Libidus seemed serious as he spoke. It's about Rayla. I need you to trust me and avoid trying anything with her. What do you mean? Please, I saw you two down there. For the past month you two have gotten really close. And I don't want that to change since she has been a lot happier since you've come around. But please, don't get seriously romantic. For her sake. Why? I got curious. Being honest with myself, I've come to really like Rayla. She was smart, mature, had a great sense of humor, and was beautiful. I couldn't say I hadn't thought of pursuing anything. But Libidus was making me morbidly curious. He shook his head with a sigh. I'm not sure I should tell you. It's her business. Hey, let's not play these games. Tell me, or I'll just go ask her about it myself. Because I like her too much to beat around such an important detail. Fine. He gave in, but before he spoke, he grabbed a cup and downed all its contents. After a cough, he looked around before turning his voice low. Look, she's been married before. It wasn't long before she joined the military that she found her husband. Both of them were warlocks, so they joined together. But he didn't make it out. He spoke with lingering sorrow. She's been depressed for years since they had been trying for a child. Still probably hasn't gotten over it. But when you two met, she's been all bright and happy. You're a good man, John, and normally I'd say you two would be good together. But I don't think she's in the position to get involved romantically. I don't know if she'll ever be. They seriously loved each other. I mean, she almost killed herself over it. The scourge took her man in the worst way possible. Plus, you're quite a bit younger than her. The facts don't mesh, and I don't want things to be ruined between you two because of that conflict. I was silent, processing these shocking revelations. Libidus sighed when he glanced at me, downing another cup. I'm sorry, John. But please trust me on this. You two can get as chummy as you want, but keep it as friends. If you try to take it that one step further, I don't see it ending well for either of you. It'll just be an amazing friendship brought to an unnecessary halt. Thank you for telling me. I responded dully, grabbing an entire bottle of alcohol off a butler's tray and taking a swig. I pinched my temples. I'll think about it. Well, no need to do it sober. But keep things up like this, and you'll probably have to make the decision tonight. Oh, she's coming. Libidus smiled and waved while Rayla walked over. With my back facing her, I clenched my jaw before taking another drink and turning around. Hey! Care to join us? I offered with a wide smile, waving the bottle around in front of her face. She smirked and took it, taking a swig with a scrunched face. Bleh? That's strong. At least get me something tasty. Of course. Let's head to the Tavera suite and drink there though. Like that, the three of us got ourselves comfortable in the first-class seating that was armed with a private bar. And so, the quarterly auction was kicked off, filled with happiness and hidden sorrows. Chapter 14. Yeah? God, you're so drunk. No. Definitely not. I'm an American. I can hold my liquor. Yes, I know. It's the only reason you haven't passed out yet. I mean, 5 bottles. Rayla chuckled wryly as she practically carried John. Recalling the night, although it seemed like he just wanted to let a little loose, she felt something was off. It was when he was left alone. It only took a glance to see the hollow stare. And it was only when she moved into his line of sight that he would perk back up and drink a bit more. He downed hard liquor like water, impressing even the knights of the Tavera family. And for some reason he made it known that he was what they called an American. That's what everyone was calling him by the end of the night. Now here he was, basically slung over her shoulder as she dragged him back to her house. And there was one other thing that concerned her. On their way out of the Black Spider Market, she passed by the Keymaster. The two were acquainted. It was his words that made her think. You have something good, Rayla no lavage. Sorry. His comment had made her heart constrict. No lavage. That was her late husband's surname. After he died, she no longer kept it since she couldn't carry that family name without him. So that name triggered deep memories that she didn't want to remember. She glanced at his oddly gentle face. A true friendship is an amazing thing, but still nothing more. She didn't respond to that. But she still thought about it deeply as she unlocked the door to her apartment. Oh, am I actually in a girl's house? Are you 12? Here, just lay on the couch. I'm banished to the couch. She rolled her eyes as John sighed, lowering him onto the cushions. Then she sat on the armrest by his head. He was already dozing off. When he shifted, she could see him glance at her through half-closed eyes. She reached down, brushing back some of his hair. The two were quiet, simply staring at each other. There were so many things that both of them wanted to say, but there was much more that was better left unsaid. Both of them had straightforward personalities, but in this moment, their desire to carefully tread an invisible line took hold. What they wanted and what they knew they should do conflicted. In the end, Raya spoke first. Why didn't you go talk to those girls? It seemed like a joking question, but it made John's mind spin. He could say he didn't talk to them because he'd rather be with her. It would give him exactly what he wanted, which was to take that step forward. But it wouldn't align with what he wanted for Rayla, which was to maintain their friendship. Rayla didn't know that Libidus told John about her late husband. She didn't know that he had been thinking for hours about what was best for both of them. She surely had the same conflicts in her mind. Was she ready to get into a serious relationship? Would she mess it up because of her past? And before all that, did she want to change John to herself? Or did she want him to be with someone that didn't have all the baggage she did? And her question meant one thing. She was leaving the decision to him. If he wanted it, then she would do it. If he didn't, maybe. John mumbled lightly, stopping for a moment as he relaxed his tightening throat. I think I was just nervous. Nervous. Yeah. Indecisive. Afraid. I can't say I'm the smoothest talker. Maybe I would mess things up. She was silent, but after a while, John asked, Did you want me to talk to them? Well. Her voice was unusually soft, yet filled with emotion that threatened to burst. Taking a deep breath, she slipped off the arm of the chair and kneeled on the floor in front of the couch. Her head leaned on the cushion. She didn't respond for close to a minute. And when she finally lifted her head, she had a small sorrowful smile. I was just trying to get you a girlfriend. A lot of those chicks come from rich families. They would be good picks. That's true. Not that I care about that. Yeah. Promise me something. She lifted her head and leaned forward. I need this, but promise me this will never happen again." She said that, and after moving forward, she locked her lips with his. Chapter 15. I wasn't sure when I woke up, but I quickly realized that I wasn't the first. And it took a few seconds, but when I saw the messy sheets of the bed and started recalling the night before, I fucked up. I had done just about everything I told myself not to, if not more. Not only that, I had finished inside of her. Ah, shit. I was way too drunk. I felt waves of regret. This seriously wasn't good for either of us. And I wasn't thinking I'd become a father just a couple months after coming to an entirely new world. Well, I'd own up to it like a man if I had to. Still, I spent close to half an hour wallowing in shame before finally pulling myself up. I knew she had a shower since that was one of our stops the night before. So walking into the bathroom connected to her bedroom, I threw it on and washed up. As for the hangover, I barely had a headache. All the alcohol was high quality, and combined with my vigorous body, I guess I had avoided a large part of the hurt. When I rinsed and came back out, I found my clothes folded on the bed that had been remade. Feeling another wave of shame, I threw on my pants and shirt while slinging my coat over my shoulder. It looked less like a walk of shame that way. Then, I steeled myself as I left the bedroom. My heart throbbed in my chest when I saw Rayla in the kitchen. She was holding a jar, grabbing small cookies out of it and tossing them in her mouth with seeming anxiety. She froze when she saw me, and for a few seconds, neither of us reacted. Until she smiled. "Hey. How's the hangover?" "Fine. Just a small headache." "Impressive." I didn't smile as cheerily as she did. First, I glanced out the window, seeing that the sun was already setting. Then I sighed and walked over to the dining table, standing behind a seat. "I'm sorry, I have to ask." I could feel my face burn as I spit it out. Last night, beyond all other outstanding issues, I wasn't exactly restrained with how much I finished inside you. That. As if not expecting that to be my concern, she tilted her head. "Putting aside the difficulty from Magi to have kids anyway, there's tons of magic for that. So, no, I'm not going to be pregnant." "Oh, thank the Lord. That seemed to be weighing on you pretty heavily." She had a small smile as I slumped over the table in relief. I sighed. "Of course. I'm 22 and absolutely not ready to be a father. I mean, I've still got so much to do before I can settle." I stopped there. That might have been insensitive. I could imagine that the crux of the matter for Rayla was if she was willing to get in a relationship with me, who was only 22, and when she had the baggage that she did. We were supposed to stay friends. That way, both of us could be happy. She would have a friend that brightened up her life, and I could still pursue someone that would be a better fit for me while having a close friend of my own. But those plans of simplicity all shattered when she went in for that kiss. And now we were here. For a while I couldn't seem to raise my head and face her, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do now. But it seemed she already had an idea. "Hey, John," she called with a soft voice. When I lifted my head, I saw her gentle smile. "What happened last night was entirely on me. I know what you wanted. Yet I let my desires take hold. I won't make excuses. So I apologize. And, shit, I don't know." "Hey," I interrupted her, giving her a smile. "We're both straightforward people, right? Let's not make it complicated." I said that as I walked over, putting myself in front of her and sticking my hand out. "Things are good, yay? Let's just keep having fun like we have been. Okay?" She stared at me for a second before glancing down at my hand that was waiting for a shake. Rolling my eyes, I reached out and grabbed her opposite hand, placing it in mine and shaking it. "Pleasure doing business." "Wah ha ha ha." She broke out in a fit of laughter, making me smile wide. "What? Ha ha, you. I don't think I've ever had a guy end something like that with a formal handshake. You're really something else. Hey, handshakes are universal." "Uh-huh. Sure. She chuckled a bit more before pulling my hand and wrapping me in a hug. "Thanks, John. Really." Of course. We hugged for a while before separating and smiling at each other. "So tell nobody?" "Nope." Smooth. I was worried that things were going to get weird, despite what seemed like a good resolution. But my worries were unfounded. Rayla took it amazingly well, which is what I wanted. She was the one I was worried about, after all. If she had any lingering feelings or if she was just pretending, then she would have no doubt drifted away. But we still continued to talk almost every day, occasionally meeting for a night out, or doing some bigger jobs together. And nothing romantic ever happened. We continued to be great friends, and nobody could sense that anything was different between us besides the fact that we seemed to be quite a bit closer than before. Libitus had come to me a couple days after and asked me how it went since he knew I went back to Rayla's place. And I told him that nothing had happened, that I just slept off my hangover. He sighed in relief at that, totally believing me. That basically concluded everything. That night was one I would never forget. I've had experience with girls on Earth, but nothing had ever been so hot and passionate. None of my past experiences even came close to comparing. I suppose it was because we were both letting out pent-up feelings, knowing that it would be the one and only time. So we poured out everything without inhibition. But given some time to cool down, we both leveled our heads and continued as we had before. Neither of us tried anything, keeping it strictly platonic. Of course, we deeply cared for each other. We were even closer than before, and we'd managed to build something quite unique. It seemed to work, because even a week later, we were still basically best friends. "You're almost there. You've been training for all of what, a month? Something like that. Shit. I gotta admit, even for the low level, that's some talent." Rayla's surprised voice echoed in my mind. I was sitting in my room, the book and white crystal in front of me. I was preparing for another training session, one I sensed would be my last before entering the magisterium. I asked while opening the book and viewing the spell. "How long did it take you?" "You're at authority 8, right?" "Yay. I don't remember exactly, but my first 4 authorities took about 3 years to achieve. Everything after that was a slow crawl. But then again, my talent isn't the greatest. Still, authority 8 is massive." I let out a breath. The maximum level achievable was authority 12. So while there was technically an uncrossable chasm between them, authority 8 was still amazingly high. Rayla was powerful, that much I knew. And that was despite her getting injured whenever we ran jobs. The reason she got injured was because, unlike me, she was dealing with truly powerful opponents. It was like when Plex came back from the trenches with the shit kicked out of him after meeting Apocrine. According to my experience thus far, the best I could handle was an authority 3 knight and up to authority 5 warlocks and summoners being an authority 2. But even that was only doable because nobody knew the nature of my weapons. Knights were my bane because, unlike warlocks or summoners, they didn't need to preemptively prepare defenses to survive a bullet. I couldn't imagine authority 8 knights, and I barely understood the crazy powers of an authority 8 warlock. Whenever Rayla battled, she would always disappear for a while. That was to keep me out of the crossfire. So I never actually got to witness the full power of someone at that level. But the flattened buildings, crevices in the ground, and the occasional sounds I would hear gave away the fact that it was a whole other league. Rayla chuckled. When you get to that level, you start to realize that no amount of power you attain is truly massive. Things only reach further and further extremes the higher you climb. The you as an authority 2 might see an authority 8 or 9 as some kind of god. But as an authority 8, I've met authority 10s that seem like gods, and those above them. I couldn't fathom their power, let alone try to reach it. She sighed, her words making me realize just how insane those levels were. Besides, I'm not even a good authority 8. A good authority 7 could match me just fine. Please, you're amazing as is. Plus, the higher you go, the more problematic things get. Would you really want to live that kind of life? No. I wouldn't. So then you're golden. Thanks. Now go train. I expect to see some new summons tomorrow since you've been yapping about how amazing they're going to be. Right. I smiled, and after some goodbyes, we hung up. Picking up the book, I started forming the spell that I had already memorized. And with the crystal, I used its energy to drive the spell and expand my power. Like last time, I was close to unlocking the third star. It took a lot more energy than last time, at least several times more. And yet, I had gotten this far much faster than prior. It was because I had finally gotten used to forming these complicated spells. And without that barrier, most of my time was spent training. In that sense, it had actually taken longer to train, being 4 weeks of accumulation instead of 3. Regardless, everything was coming to a head. The feelings were almost identical to last time. The energy reached a tipping point, and then, the barrier of the star was broken through. With a massive drain in energy, the third dimension was opened. I slumped in my bed, my mind exhausted. The outpour. But keeping myself awake, I observed what few spirits I could see in the dimension. And the sight caused me to smile. 6-shooter revolvers. Lever-action rifles. Break-action shotguns. Old-school weapons, no doubt. It was the kind of stuff you would see in depictions of the Wild West. There weren't semi-automatic pistols or rifles, not even pump-action shotguns. But these weapons meant a vast jump in survivability for me. Also, with my increased pool of Psyche, I could empower my spirits more, meaning more overall killing power. With that, I passed out in glee. I was really looking forward to the future. Yeehaw, motherfucker. Boom. I let out a shotgun blast toward the man in front of me. His body unceremoniously went flying, his chest turned into paste. I wiped some blood splatter off my face, turning toward the others. See that, assholes? I've got an upgrade. The American is stronger. Shit. Just give me that damn coin. From a distance, a bold but inexperienced warlock prepared a couple spells. But with a flick of my wrist, the shotgun was put away and a rifle took its place. Firing a .30-30 cartridge, this wooden-bodied beauty was a monster that had already made my life easier in several ways. Particularly, in this way. Boom. Another explosion shook everyone's ears, even mine. And across the way, the bold warlock looked down to find a new hole in his chest. He had even put up some kind of magical barrier, but it had done absolutely nothing to stop the bullet. I had already become notorious in the trenches, so much so that not many came to bother me anymore. The only ones who came were those in groups. And everyone knew that when I aimed my boomstick, the person on the end of it would get hurt. So they used their brains and started preparing barriers. Before, they might have had a chance to mitigate some of the damage. But with these new weapons, I was about to enter a whole new level of notoriety. I could see everyone look at me like I was a freak as I breathed in the wonderful scent of gunpowder smoking out of the barrel end. Anyone else? I've got enough lead for you all. Fuck. They grit their teeth, and ultimately, they ran away. I smirked and waltzed my way out. But before long, there was someone who stepped in my path. He snarled at me. Remember me, American? Didn't I run away from you one time? I scratched my head while looking at the short man who appeared. He had no shirt, showing off his bulky muscles, and a nasty scar in his abdomen. I put that scar there with my flintlock while I was injured and running away. I only recognized him since he really was short. I called him a gremlin no few number of times. What, you back for revenge? Fucking gremlin. Call me that again one more time. He grit his teeth as his muscles bulged in rage. I smiled. Just get your stubby feet over here, gremlin. Ag. With a bellow, the little man came charging at me. At the same time, I raised the rifle. Bang 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 asterisk. I let out 4 shots. One hit his leg, one hit an arm, and the other 2 landed somewhere in that pile of abs. But he only stumbled in surprise before continuing. Is that all you got? You summoners are trash. Frowning, I waved my hand, grabbing the shotgun and throwing in 2 new shells with skillful hands. In that time, he closed the distance even with me backpedaling. Eat this slug. Asterisk boom asterisk. This time, he couldn't be so arrogant. Though, I would give him a bit of internal praise. Instead of getting his head outright blown off, he only lost an arm. Gah! He dropped while clutching his empty shoulder socket. But perhaps riding the wave of shock, he quickly stumbled back up and moved to take me down. You're dead. 2 shells, dumbass. And that was it. Asterisk boom asterisk. I put a hole in his chest, causing him to freeze. He stood there for a few seconds before I pushed with my barrel, knocking him to the floor. I smiled as blood soaked the dirt ground beneath him. I've told everyone to just leave me alone. Besides, it's not like I got my gold just sitting in my pockets. Now look at you. Dead. Was it worth it, gremlin? I stepped over his corpse and continued walking. When I finally got out of the trenches, I walked around before finding a specific bar. It was there that I saw Rayla standing outside, who noticed me and waved. Hey, sweet cheeks. You're covered in blood. And this time, none of it's mine. I even killed that gremlin from some time ago. Yes, those weapons of yours are insane. You're also more aggressive than usual. She laughed while pulling out a handkerchief, wiping my face down. Then, she smirked. You forgot to wear your air mask. No wonder you're enjoying yourself so much. Oh, crap. I suddenly remembered that. Normally I had it on while in the trenches, but I forgot it today. I was cleaning it yesterday. I think I forgot it in my bathroom. Of course you did. Well, getting high for just one day is fine. There. She finished cleaning and pat my cheek. Now let's get a drink. Libitus and the others are already inside. Sure. We smiled and went inside, meeting the others and having a small post-work party. Chapter 16. Maxwell looked me over, nodding in approval. Third authority only a few months after starting training. Your talent is good then. You should have no issues in the magisterium. Well, I only have one concern. I asked. My summons, my guns, are way too lethal. I mean, I can't just dial down their power. That's not how they work. So if I ever have to fight anyone, like in tournaments or whatever, I wouldn't worry too much about that. A majority of your battles in the magisterium are going to be against the Scourge or in artificial hunting grounds. The times you will turn your weapons against a fellow magus are few, and even then, you may be exempt due to the nature of your power. After all, you aren't the first to have this problem of excessive lethality. Oh, good. So, other than fighting, what exactly do we do there? The time to enter the magisterium was coming. I had 1 more month. The past 4 months had been filled with constant fighting and working. I had learned more than I ever expected since arriving, and Maxwell had helped raise me to the third authority. I was a whole new man who had been reforged through the fires of those dastardly trenches. Or, I should say the smoke. You could get high just by breathing the air of that place. Learned that the fun way. Anyway, going from all this to a school wasn't a change in pace that I was quite prepared for. But then again, I didn't think I would be stopping my work. I still wanted to make money despite having tons in my savings, even if only occasionally. Maxwell sat back in his chair while letting out a breath. Normally there are 3 things you do at the magisterium. You learn their summoner calls, cultivate your authority, and fight. But since you are learning my call, you won't be learning theirs. So you'll be cultivating using the formations they give you and learning to fight against the Scourge. Remember that the sole purpose of the magisterium is to develop elite soldiers that can fight the Scourge. Therefore you'll be fighting alongside the military rather often, especially since you'll be jumping straight into the higher ranks of the school. Alright. And how long should I expect to be there? Depends on how fast you climb to Authority 5. It's at about that level that they tend to transition you to the military, unless you show enough talent to climb higher in a short amount of time. Even in that case though, They would still have you hunting as a part of more specialized units. Also, I should warn you of something. Maxwell's face turned a little ponderous. By going to the magisterium, you're signing yourself away to the kingdom. In exchange for the cultivation spell formations of higher levels, you are required to fight for them, or contribute something to the cause. If you were a warlock, then you could study to become an enchanter, but you aren't, so you're destined to join the military should you choose this path. Otherwise, you refrain from entering and go your own way, but then you won't be able to advance anymore. Unless you find an organization that would give you the summoner spell formations for higher authorities. So if I want to get stronger, I have to work for somebody. Nothing is ever free, especially in our line of work. The cost of those white crystals are high, multiplying with each higher level. And the cultivation formations even more so. Though, there is one way that you can avoid the military and still go to the magisterium. What's that? If you get recruited by the church. He eyed me curiously. Are you a believer, John? In the church that believes in Jesus Christ the Savior and Son of God, headed by the Pope, and the greatest nemesis of the demonic plague that is the scourge. Oh, well, I didn't really know about the scourge part, but yes, I'm a Christian. I'm American after all. Though if I'm being specific, my parents raised me Catholic. I spoke, but inwardly, I was surprised. I didn't realize they would also have Christianity here. It seemed to be exactly what I knew it as on Earth. Getting curious, I asked, are there any other religions? Of course. The only significant religion is Teravia, comprised of those who believe in gods that represent the different aspects of nature. You could also say they worship magic in a sense. Those people have primarily come from the pillars of creation. What's that? The only other kingdom that has been able to stand and survive against the scourge, other than the kingdom of Dragon's Tongue. They're human, but vastly different from us in terms of magic. And because we are separated by vast distance, very little occurs between us. Most people don't even know they exist, believing that our kingdom is the last bastion of humanity in this world. Oh. I nodded. And are there any denominations of the church? Obviously, but they're inconsequential. They have tried and failed to make reforms, and very little actually give them the time of day. So they have resorted to forming underground cults that you'll never hear of. Interesting. Anyway, since you're a believer and have no affiliations or background to speak of, then you might have a chance of getting recruited. Unlike other cold summoners, I see great potential in your weapons. Truly, they're lethal, and against the scourge, that means everything. I have no doubt that you will rise to great heights, but I only hope that you are capable of keeping yourself safe. Remember that defense is your greatest weakness. Yea, I'm a glass cannon. Perfect analogy. He smirked at me. Over time, I had begun to feel the great deficiency that was my defense. My offense was amazing, but if I really got hit by a strong attack, I was done for. At some point I would no longer be able to kill my opponents before they hurt me, and that would be the day I either found another solution, or died. I should buy armor. Yes, that would be a good investment, especially for you. But take some time to find what kind of armor you like. Perhaps when you begin to fight against the scourge, you'll know what type of armor will benefit you best. Alright. Now, what should I do until I enter? Work on the call. Maxwell nodded. Yes, extensive study will help you best. I should have you memorize the more complex spells and formations for the higher authorities. Oh geez. I let out a sigh. It was going to be a long month. A few more weeks passed. My savings climbed by the day, and although I wasn't rich like the others in the company, I still had a sizable amount of money lying around. Only a week before I entered the magisterium, I was actually notified by the Polaris Bank to come in. It was there that I met the clerk, and he gave me some good news. Congratulations, John. Because you have surpassed 500,000 coins stored with us, we have upgraded your tier in accordance with your company's platinum level. You now have access to 2 new perks, along with no longer needing to pay a fee for continual storage. The clerk handed me a platinum card, taking my gold one away. The platinum one had fancy designs on it, looking far more luxurious than the gold one. First, the platinum tier allows you to take out loans with 0% interest. Depending on the amount, you are assigned a date to pay back the loans, usually amounting to a few years. Secondly, you can now insert normal items other than coin into the card in order to store it in our secure warehouse. Eligible items include jewels, weapons, small containers, and anything else that can fit within the expanded card. Go ahead and try pulling the card apart. Okay. Getting excited, I grabbed the two edges of the card and pulled. The entire thing expanded, metal unfolding as if generating new material from nowhere. It ended up as a large box that you could easily drop many things into, so long as they weren't excessively bulky. The only drawback to this storage method is that the card only works within the bounds of the capital city. If you ever leave, be sure to retrieve anything you might need beforehand. And if you don't have one already, I suggest acquiring a spatial sack in order to transport items on your person no matter where you go. What's that? And where can I find one? I asked curiously. I was about to be entering the magisterium, and we would no doubt be leaving the city occasionally. This spatial sack sounded like it could help me. A spatial sack is a small bag that can contain items beyond its normal volume. But because of their utility, they are normally very expensive. If you were to spend the entirety of your savings, you would be able to buy a medium-grade sack. Damn. Well, I'll think about it. Thanks for the info, and the card. Of course. As a new Platinum client under a Platinum company, you are no longer required to pay a percentage fee for our services as your company pays a universal rate for all its members. Nice. I was smiling as the clerk finished with everything he had to say. Afterward, I left the bank and called Rayla. Hey, sweet cheeks. Hey. I was wondering if I should buy a spatial sack. You could, but honestly, it's not totally necessary for you. Her voice turned explanatory. With all your weapons being summons and your coin being taken care of by the card, the only loose items you carry on you are that mask and recovery pills. But if you really want it, I suggest getting one of the lower-end sacks. They hold enough space to contain a bunch of small items, which is perfect for you. That is, if you want to spend around 50 gold bullion for one. Maybe. We'll see. I'm just thinking if I'll need something like that for the magisterium. That's right. You're entering soon. She went quiet for a moment. Just think on it for a while. Oh, and by the way, Plex told me to tell you to keep your schedule clear about 3 days before your official entrance. That means no work. All right. Care to tell me what he's planning? But then it wouldn't be much of a surprise. Tell me. Nope. My lips are sealed, pretty boy. You just sit back and wait for me to send you the location. She spoke haughtily before hanging up. I was left rolling my eyes with a smile. From then on, I didn't see Rayla or the others. It seemed like they were avoiding me. And so a few more days passed, coming upon the day of my surprise. Since I didn't have anything to do, I slept in and woke up leisurely. I also went to a restaurant for breakfast, even though the sun had already set. After that I hung around for a few hours, spending some time probing my third star dimension for any spirits that might be worth communing with. And finally, once 2 a.m. hit, I got a message. Head to the caviar restaurant. It was from Rayla, and the name surprised me a bit. This restaurant was located within the Black Spider Market, and it was the highest-end restaurant I knew of. It was never particularly busy, but I knew that the reason for that was the expense. Dressing somewhat nicely, I finally left my room and headed into the market. Seeing the market slightly busy reminded me that there was another upcoming auction. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to work it since I would be busy entering the magisterium. Because of that, Rayla would either take the auction off or work in the trio with some of the others. It didn't take me long to make it to the restaurant. It was a fancy building with formally dressed attendants, an entire orchestra playing within, and magical lights that set a wonderful mood. I walked in and met a host who smiled courteously. "Hello, sir. Do you have a reservation? I think so. My name is John. Ah, I was told you'd be coming. Please head to the 16th floor. Thanks. Being guided to an elevator, an attendant pressed the button for me. I got a little anxious as we rose, wondering what they had planned. I had naturally guessed that it had to do with my entrance, so I wondered if it was just a congratulatory party. Ding asterisk. We made it to the floor, and the door opened. But the room I was let out on was totally dark. Not even the light from the elevator could illuminate the darkness, as if it was artificial. Stepping out, the elevator doors closed, leaving me in pitch darkness. My hand twitched a bit, my mind subconsciously communing with my double-barrel shotgun. Then, the lights came on, revealing my friends of the company. Surprise. Poof. Rainbow lights scattered in the air as everyone jumped with a cheer. It was funny though, because there were only 4 of them, and 3 were men. Their voices were all deep, making it seem dull. I laughed with a pretend scare. Ah. I'm so scared. As if. Get over here. Rayla rolled her eyes and walked over, giving me a hug. After that I greeted the other guys. Libitus handed me a drink and I shook Tovex's hand. Plex announced. Congratulations, John. You're finally getting into the magisterium. Libitus and Rayla had decided to throw you a party, and with you being my apprentice, I naturally agreed. Only after making us foot the bill. I still agreed. Plex shot back at Libitus, making Rayla laugh. Not important. The point is, tonight we're going to have fun. A company party. And so long as you're not totally drunk in an hour or 2, we've got presents to give to you. Yes, some expensive congratulatory presents. Shut up, you're rich. Rayla shot back at Plex. Smiling, I raised the glass of wine that Libitus handed me. Well, thanks everyone. Cheers. Cheers. We all tipped back our drinks. Then, a night of festivities was kicked off. Chapter 17. Hey, I remember when this kid was new. Shut up. He was so cocky, I mean, he said he'd take me down with him if he had a hard time with a job. Ha ha ha. Oh God. I covered my face as Rayla laughed her ass off. After an hour or so, we were all tipsy from the high-quality drinks this restaurant served. The food we ordered was also fantastically high class. I stuffed my face with some cubes of meat to distract from the embarrassing memories. Libitus nodded and spoke while chewing. Yay, but in his defense, his summons are pretty crazy. 5 months later and he was able to survive even in the trenches. He can kill people far above his level. Well, no thanks to Maxwell. How you managed to land that man as a teacher is beyond me. Plex was flabbergasted while tilting back another drink. I raised my glass to Libitus. Thanks man. Still stupid for trying to challenge Plex though. Then I take back my thanks. Ha ha ha. Libitus laughed as I stuck up my middle finger. At that moment, Rayla suddenly clapped. Oh. We still need to do presents. Presents. I cheered as Rayla stood and went to a corner of the room. There, she grabbed a couple boxes. One was big, and one was small. Open the big one first. Libitus smiled as Rayla handed the big box to me. I grabbed it from her, feeling a bit of weight. This is from all of us and Maxwell. Maxwell. Yes. I'm pretty sure he pitched in the most out of us all. Yeah, not that he isn't wiping his ass with gold paper. Plex chuckled as I opened the box. Inside, I could see a piece of clothing. But not just any ordinary clothing. I took out the item, unfurling it and finding that it was a coat, not unlike the one I had bought a while ago. Except, although it was a black long coat, it had purple lines branching from the spine outward toward the edges. They occasionally pulsed, like veins connected to a beating heart. It's a coat made from the pelt of a hybrid mind beast. These hybrids are basically a combination of 2 branches of Magi. This one is both a summoner and knight. They are rare, and even harder to kill. Not only that, but this pelt is made from the most expensive part of their body, the spinal column. Basically, it's fucking expensive, and if you die while wearing that, You'll be the biggest joke of the kingdom." Plex summed up, causing Rayla to kick his leg. "Don't listen to him. We know that your weakness is defense, so this should make up for a good portion of that. It goes down to your knees, so it even protects most of your legs. Just be careful of what it doesn't protect, like your head and feet. Also, although the coat won't break, the impact can still hurt you. This won't make you invincible. It even has some utility when activated that can help you in battles. Of course. This is more than enough. Thank you, everyone. I'll take care of it. We got it to take care of you, so keep yourself safe." Libidus gave me a warm smile. After that, Rayla handed me the small box. She hastened me to open it. "Oh. It's this." I was surprised as I pulled out a bracelet. It was a spatial sack. I had gone and looked for some myself since I was thinking about buying one and knew what they looked like. In fact, the Polaris Bank sold a line of them. This seemed to be one of those. This is a Polaris brand spatial sack. It doesn't have a lot of room, no more than a chest full of worth. But we mainly chose this one for its functionality. With it, you can directly will items into your hand. Its ease of use is worth much more than the potential sheer space. The bracelet also locks to your arm, so it won't be stolen unless someone cuts it off you. That's cool. Thanks you guys. I smiled while slipping it onto my right wrist, same place that my aerial was. The bracelet went a bit higher up the forearm before clamping down comfortably. After that, it seemed to scan my crest before activating with a pulse of blue light. Then I suddenly became aware of the space inside the bracelet. It really was about a chest-sized area, about 4 cubic feet big. So while it couldn't be used to store any significant amount of supplies, it was enough for any small items I needed. For instance, instead of needing to take a recovery pill out of a container within my pocket, I could just make one appear in my hand and pop it into my mouth. With this, I wouldn't need to carry anything on my person, so nothing would get lost or stolen. These 2 gifts that I was given were valuable, especially the coat. I couldn't imagine how much was spent on it if not just Maxwell, but everyone here pitched in for it. It was a big gift, making me feel really grateful. These were the first friends I had in this world. After leaving behind everything I knew, I suppose that I had been ignoring the homesickness and focusing on making my way here. But now, I wasn't so homesick. Thank you guys, really. Getting slightly emotional, I got up and went around hugging everyone. Plex was the last, and as I stood in front of him, he looked up at me weirdly. "You're gonna make me get up? Come on. An apprentice can thank his master with a hug, no? Besides, you gave me this job when I needed it most. Despite everything, I'm still thankful for all you've done for me." Fine. I can have a heart. Standing up, the man accepted the hug with a pat on the back. After that, the party went on for a little while longer before ending a bit before the sun came up. When everyone finally decided to go, it was Libidus who pulled something out of his jacket. "Hey. Let's all take a picture." "With what?" "This thing I got. The guy who sold it said it would make physical copies." He fumbled around with a magical device that looked similar to my bank card. As he was still a bit drunk, he was less coordinated. But he got it set up and waved everyone over with a smile. We all bundled together, looking into the card with smiles. "Wait, what about Tovex? He's passed out." "Dumb bass. Whatever." Smile. Raising it above us, Libidus activated the device with magic. It flashed, and he brought it down. After that, it divided into 5 cards. One for everybody. As a memory. This is cool. I smiled at the flexible card that now had a picture of the 4 of us. Libidus with a goofy grin, Rayla putting up 2 fingers, Plex barely keeping himself standing with a drunken face. Tovex in the back on the ground and with his ass in the air. I put the picture into my bracelet, feeling fuzzy on the inside. It reminded me of home. Rayla and I were still in the room after everyone had left. I guess they had tacitly decided to give us our own space, as if we were dating. Not that our relationship was that far from it. And when it was just the 2 of us, I finally got to focus on perhaps the greatest thing about this reserved room in this high-class restaurant. One of the walls was completely glass, and since this place was near the center of the city and so high up, it gave a clear view of the surrounding landscape. I could see the morning rays light up the sides of hundreds of buildings around the kingdom's capital. I could even see part of the royal palace in all its marvelous golden glory. It was a breathtaking sight, and I ended up staring at it for a long time. Rayla took a seat with me, staring out the window for a while before reaching over. She placed a small box in my lap. I looked over at her as she smiled. A personal gift from yours truly. I was silent as I opened the box with care. Inside were a pair of gloves. The gloves that Plex had me wear when I first got here were now worn, torn in some places. But since they were for the purpose of covering my crest, I didn't care much. Besides, worn could have its own charm. Then again, the gloves also helped prevent blisters from wielding all the guns I did. But regardless of all that, this was a personal present from Rayla. I took them out. They were black and fingerless like my current ones. But these seemed to be made of high-quality leather, much better than the others. And on the back of the right hand were 4 letters written in red. Bang. I smiled at the thought, and Rayla seemed a bit embarrassed. I thought, since your summons always explode when you shoot them, it would be fitting. Anyway, the gloves are far better than your current ones. They should be comfortable and have good grip, and the leather shouldn't ever get worn down or tear from normal use. They are great. I spoke after a moment, putting the new gloves on. They really were comfortable, but more than that, they came from a good friend. You know, when I arrived here, I had literally nothing but the clothes on my back. I'll never be able to see my family or friends again, and everything that was ever familiar to me is now gone forever. Rayla was silent, not expecting my sudden confession. I sighed as I looked out the window. As if it already hadn't, the reality of my situation was hitting me hard. I knew nobody. But I was lucky to be caught by Plex and dragged into this business. After that I met Libitus. And then, I met you. I looked over, seeing Rayla hang her head. Then she suddenly leaned over, resting her temple against my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her at the same time. I'm really glad I met you, Rayla. It's hard to make genuine friends, especially in a new place. So I feel lucky that you happened to be at the company I got dragged into. Yay. I guess I'm lucky too. She spoke softly, her blood-red hair brushing against my neck as she settled in deeper. We watched the sun come up, and it was only when I heard her snoring that I figured it was time to go. I picked her up and left the market, taking her to my room in the hotel. It was there that I laid her down in my bed before jumping in myself. It was more than big enough for the two of us, so I was comfortable as I let the warmth of the alcohol take my consciousness away. I woke up unpleasantly to an alarm. Taking a few minutes, I eventually glanced at my eternally closed windows, seeing the high sun of noon. Today was the first day of magisterium entries that I needed to be in the city for. It was also my first day of efforts to flip my sleeping schedule back to normal. That would be hard since the light of day now made me drowsy. Glancing over, I could see Rayla still sound asleep next to me. Her sleeping face was adorable with her hair draped across her lips. Despite supposedly being that much older than me, she only looked to be in her late 20s. But there was no mistaking the mature charm she carried, which made her seem a bit older. She really was a beautiful woman. Being active with this job made her body toned and strong. And as I had discovered during our night together, her scars only made her that much hotter. After staring for longer than I should have, I finally pulled myself out of bed. I cleaned myself up and got dressed. Today was the first day of our auction runs, but since I had school to deal with, I wouldn't be participating. I was probably missing out on a few dozen gold bullion, which made me groan in financial pain. When I was basically prepared to leave, I suddenly remembered the new coat I had received as a gift last night. I operated the similarly new spatial bracelet, letting the coat appear in my grasp. Even lower-end clothing like the one I bought for 80 gold bullion was equipped with all manner of pleasant enhancements like self-cleaning, temperature control, and more. This black coat had all those things and more. But the most obvious part of this item were the purple lines that looked like blood vessels spreading from the spine of the back. I looked at the formations with a clearer head. Down the back from the collar to the tailbone, I could see a long series of thick ridges. It really looked like a spinal column, just like Rayla had described. And from these vertebrae were all these lines that sprouted outward, spreading around to the front of the coat. Perhaps they were more like nerves instead of blood vessels. Either way, all these lines consistently pulsed with a bloom of purple. Until I put it on. When I slipped my arms through the sleeves, I could feel the coat suddenly pulse with a wave of magic. It reminded me of the first time I got hit by magic during my first heavyweight job, a pulse of mana that disrupted my insides. Except this seemed to envelop me with it, scanning my body and conforming the leather to it. Then, I felt something make contact with my mind. It was like I suddenly became aware of a new limb, the coat being the limb. This connection allowed me to see every detail of the coat. I could practically feel it, like it was a second skin. And after a few moments, the magic disappeared, and I found that the spinal column of the coat was now seated along my own spine. It moved with my body yet refused to let go, making it stick like a magnet. This was a good thing, of course. This meant it would stay snug while I moved, not restricting my movements or getting annoying. More than all that, it was incredibly comfortable. While the leather was surprisingly thick, the weight was negligible and the feel against my body was divine. It didn't stick or feel abrasive. I wasn't sure how to describe it, but it felt like how I did in my bed when I woke up under the covers during a cold morning. Another thing I noticed was that after the coat had bonded to my body, the pulsing of those purple lines ceased. They faded into a barely faint purple, no longer active like how it had been. Unless you paid attention to it, it would appear like a normal black coat. I was glad, far more than satisfied with this gift. While the connection it formed was mysterious, I assumed it had to do with those abilities Rayla had told me about. After that, I also threw on my gloves. I smiled when I saw bang on the back of the right hand. It was cute, even cuter when I thought of how Rayla had asked for it to be put there. Suddenly, I heard Rayla's moan as she shifted in my bed. It wasn't long after that she came strolling out of my room, her clothes a mess and her eyes squinting from drowsiness. "So this is your fancy room, huh?" She spoke and cleared her throat while looking around. This hotel room, as expected from the Black Spider Hotel, was more than luxurious. It had an amazing bathroom, heavenly bed, and high-quality interior. The living room had soft carpets and plush couches along with a few decorations, one of which was a painting of some crazy complicated spell formation. I chuckled a bit. Yay, it's a bit better than the one at the other hotel I had. It's better than my entire apartment. Speaking of, why haven't you moved into something like a house? What do you think I'm saving up for? She smirked at me while walking into the kitchen, grabbing a glass and filling it with water. She spoke after taking a sip. Houses in the city are expensive. I could easily buy a mansion in any other city, but I don't want to leave this place. So I've been saving to get a property on the outskirts, a bit of a distance from the Founders Market. And yet you pitched in how much to get me this coat? I raised my brow at her. I really was curious as to how much they spent on me, since I was now planning on paying it back in some way. She snickered at me. Nice try, John. It was a gift, so you have no choice but to accept it. Besides, we actually don't know how much that coat cost. It was Maxwell who put in the order, and we're sure he paid a lot more than the combination of what we put into it. But as Plex said, it's not like the man isn't wiping his ass with gold paper. Still, you should be thanking him. I would, but I actually haven't seen him lately. I scratched my head. Ever since a few days ago, Maxwell had disappeared from the Polaris headquarters. I hadn't been to a class in around a week due to that. Rayla changed the subject. You're going to the Magisterium, right? Yay, although the entrance day is tomorrow, Maxwell told me to come a day early to get things sorted. Yes, especially for you since you're already a 33. As a forewarning, Your summons will be tested and you'll be questioned. They'll probably ask you things about where you got the spell formations, so have an answer prepared. And, the Polaris family is not really an answer, nor is Maxwell. I would just say that you're coming from the magic school in another city. Oh, alright. I nodded at the valid explanation. It wasn't like I hid anything else. Rayla nodded. Yay, say that you're from the Magic Academy of Helsberg. I've heard of people who have used that excuse. Sure. Thanks. Of course. Think of it as payment for letting me use your room a bit longer. It is way too early and I need my beauty sleep. Oh, this coat looks good on you too. She walked over, straightening out my collar. Then, she leaned in and gave me a hug. Have fun. You know I'm not leaving forever, right? The magisterium is close, so I'll still be trying to work. Yes, but not nearly as much as you were. You'll be lucky to have free time a couple times a week, especially if you're jumping into the higher ranks. So don't worry about coming in. Just focus on getting stronger. That's what will make you the big money. We separated, after which she walked by me and smacked my ass. Now get going, sweet cheeks. The magisterium doesn't work at night like the black market. Yeah, alright. With a laugh, I finally left the room, letting Rayla have her way with it. Making my way down, I saw the keymaster at the clerk counter, as always. I questioned. Do you ever sleep? Oh, John. Good afternoon, and no, I don't sleep. A full-time job requires full-time attention. Sheesh. I hope they're making you rich with all this work. Are the benefits at least good? I would say so. He smiled at me charmingly. Off to the magisterium? I am. That reminds me. You said I would get a room until I entered. Well, that time has come. Indeed. But don't fret. The magisterium will naturally provide you with residence, so you will no longer need my assistance. Although, I can't say that the stay there will be quite as pleasant. Well, of course not. I won't have the hospitality of the keymaster. Ha ha, you flatter me. The man chuckled, and I put out my hand. Thank you for everything, keymaster. Really. You've made my life much more bearable with your assistance. Hopefully one day I can pay everything back. The keymaster was silent as he looked at my hand for a few moments. Then, as if pushing past hesitation, he reached out and shook it. Our gloved hands clasped as we both smiled. It is my pleasure, John Cooper. Oh, and take this. Retracting his hand, he suddenly went digging through his coat. Then, he took out a gold key. This was a step above the silver key I was given when taking residence. I grabbed it as he spoke. Please, come back any time you need, John. Your room will remain as it has been. Ah, keymaster, you're making me feel like a leech. Well, I had also been thinking of what I can do, so here. Suddenly I summoned 6 bullets. Unlike normal spirits like guns and such, these bullets could be summoned and kept permanently in the real world since they were consumable. I placed the bullets on his desk, with slight embarrassment. Anything you need me to do, keymaster, you just tell me and I'll do it. Of course, I'm not strong enough to do anything significant now, but give me time and I'm sure you'll have a valuable asset to help her when you want it. 6 bullets for 6 promises. I see. Very well. I will accept your promise. 6 bullets for 6 promises. Thank you. No, thank you. And have a nice day, John. With that exchange, I finally left the hotel. My destination was the Magisterium, the most prestigious magic college in the kingdom. Tope continued.